Thank you, Rita. Hello and welcome to our panel. My name is Sara Vicente, and I'm thrilled to be moderating this panel today. I'm a corporate strategist at heart, but with a keen interest in social development as the founder of a charity and early stage business as an angel investor. Impact investment for me represents the best of these worlds, and as we will discuss today, hopefully the future. I've been following the impact investing market and Maze's work for a while, which is why I'm so glad to be here today. It's Maze's X Demo Day with these great speakers to explore the trends about the impact investing market and how it can be perceived as one of the greatest opportunities of our times. Very soon, you will hear the pitches from the startups that went through the program. But now, we will hear from the other side of the market, the investor side. What motivates them? What are the business trends? First things first, I want to start by introducing our panelists here today. We have Agate Freimane, is a general partner at Norrsken VC, focused on investing in impact tech startups. Carmen Alfonso Rico is a partner at Samaipata VC, an entrepreneur-led pre-Series A VC fund with a pan-European and thematic approach. And John Cocker, one of the founding partners at EKA Ventures, backing founders building sustainable consumer technology companies at Series A. Welcome all, and I will start with an introductory question to all guests. I'm told to have a strict timeline, so I will need to keep us going. Firstly, how did you end up in impact investing? Why did you end up in this space of the market, in this end of the market, rather than the traditional VC? Can we maybe start with you, Agate?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the truth is that it took me some time to find this space, but long story short, started my career in finance in investment banking at Morgan Stanley, like I know a few other analysts, few panelists here. And later jumped onto the startup side. And after my startup journey, really wanted to go into venture capital where I can combine the finance and startup experience, and was extremely lucky to meet the team at Norrsken, starting up a whole ecosystem around impact tech and entrepreneurship. And impact has always been personal interest. Even university theses back in the days was on impact investing before impact investing was a thing. But I never really actively seeked out to combine my professional skills and experience with impact. So I have to say that I was really lucky to get there. Better later than never, as they say.
What about yourself, Carmen?
So it's interesting enough because a part of the journey is very similar. I was also at Morgan Stanley, as Agate was, and we know each other from back then, and also launched a startup afterwards, and also look at venture capital as a way to kind of combine finance and entrepreneurship, and my passion for tech. I think my case is a bit different in the sense that I am actually not an investor in an impact first fund. Like we are not an impact fund, do not define ourselves as such. It's just that actually all my investments do have an impact angle, but it is because I actually believe that they're better businesses, and we can discuss that later with more specific questions. But I do think that it is a very sound decision to invest in impact-led businesses because they can bring better returns. And also something that I've also kind of been very convinced of is the fact that as investors, we have a huge privilege of being able to, we're given money to invest in companies, and we can really have an impact and make a difference on what projects go ahead and which ones do not succeed. And therefore, with privilege comes responsibility, right? And we should be mindful of where we put our money and our resources and what impact that has in the world.
Okay, Carmen, you're already giving us some food for thought there. John, can I ask about how you ended in this space?
Yeah, sure. So I've been in venture for the last 13 years, and I guess over the last 5 or 6 years, just began to focus increasingly on companies where you could see a measurable impact from the core product. And I guess what came from that is just a sense very similar to what Carmen was just saying, like the sense that what we're trying to achieve as venture investors is to invest in the companies that define our economy in 20 years' time. And I increasingly felt like that came with a responsibility to properly kind of assess the impact those companies would have. And then combined with that, we started to see that those companies had benefits across all of their key stakeholders, whether that be their their customers, their talent, their capital, and that was creating additional demand. And then combined with that, we now have the technology available to us to solve some of the biggest challenges that we face as an economy and a society. And so those kind of three things all came together in this just belief that, to be honest, I believe that impact investing will become mainstream, but we need to kind of show the way of doing that. And that was the core motivation for setting up ECA.
Thank you, John. So Agate, you've been in the space for a while, and how have you seen it evolve from the first times that you've joined, and what areas do you see growing in importance?
Yeah, it's actually interesting how quickly the space has grown. I think I've seen some statistics that in the last 10 years, it's grown by 10x, and it's still expected to grow another 10x for the next 10 years. But even in a couple of years that we've been investing in the space, I mean, when we started out here in the Nordics, we were literally the first impact VC in the market. Today, there are a few more, and in some ways, it's taken us sort of by surprise how quickly the market is growing, but we're extremely happy about it because despite the fact that now there seems to be a lot of momentum, impact investing is a lot more visible than it was a couple of years ago. It's still such a small percentage of the market. Like I think the global statistics are that impact investing today accounts for $500 billion globally. I mean, insanely large number on absolute basis, but on relative basis, that's still less than 1% of the global capital allocation. So there is still a lot of room to grow. And I definitely echo John that I hope that one day we will see impact investing going more mainstream. And I guess what I mean by impact investing going more mainstream is that every investor out there, pension funds, insurance companies, that they will actually have X% allocation to impact investing as an asset class in its own right.
And any specific areas that you see growing in importance?
I'd say, I mean, when it comes to impact, we align ourselves to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, and we will invest across all of these sustainable development goals, but we ourselves are vertical agnostic. If we look at our pipeline today, then half of our pipeline we could put in the climate space, and the other half is sort of well diversified between mental and physical well-being, education, financial inclusion, etc. But today, of course, climate is one of the biggest sectors, which sort of makes sense because in the end of the day, be it impact or non-impact entrepreneurs are problem solvers and they will jump at the biggest problem at hand. And today it would be hard to imagine bigger problem than the climate crisis that we're facing. And it's just a natural consequence that we see a lot of entrepreneurs now building solutions to somehow contribute in solving that problem.
Thank you. John, question for you. From your experience in fundraising, what do you feel are the main motivations and expectations that investors have when they're backing impact funds? Maybe you can talk a bit about the differences that you see versus when they talk with the more non-mainstream, non-impact fund.
Yeah, sure. So we've actually, as part of our fundraise, we've raised from LPs that are specifically focused on impact and LPs that don't have a specific impact lens, but are interested in what we're doing. I think it's probably easiest to answer that question talking about the LPs that are specifically focused on impact. And I guess I kind of think about it in three different ways. So the first is I think there's an increasing need within the impact investing world of investors with experience of companies that have really scaled. And so that's something that we spent a lot of time talking to LPs about, and then combining that with a strategy that has the opportunity to deliver meaningful impact. And so talking about the sectors that we've picked and why those technology trends have the opportunity to deliver the level of impact we believe they do. And then the third piece, and all of these, I guess, tie together, is what are the processes that we're putting in place to assess, measure, and set objectives against those impacts, and align, I guess, make sure that what we believe a company can do is aligned with what the founders and the management team want to do. So those are the three things that we spend a lot of time talking about: kind of investment experience, impact focus, and measurement, and the processes that we have put in place.
Thank you. Carmen, let's talk about another thing that's probably on everyone's mind. What sort of returns do you see this market having? Because you did specifically say you're not just looking at impact, you're looking across the spectrum. Are the hurdles different when people look at it versus traditional VC, or is this just a nice to have?
Well, like this question, because it also ties up well with the fact that I believe that impact-led businesses are better businesses and therefore can offer higher returns. Whether the kind of hurdle from LPs is different or not, maybe that's John and Agate are better positioned to answer than me because they have raised and they know what LPs expect from them. But in my case, I just think that when you think at mission-driven businesses that have an impact, you see certain specific competitive advantages or superpowers that they have versus other players that do not have that mission-driven approach, right? I've seen it firsthand, the ability of founders that are trying to solve a problem that a lot of people care about to attract insane talent at a much better price than other startups at the very same stage could do, right? And at the end of the day, talent is a key superpower. So that I also believe that founders themselves have that kind of embark themselves on a mission-driven business to have a lot of the characteristics that we look for in terms of resilience and drive, and everybody knows the startup journey is a very hard one, and when people are fighting for something they really care about, they're probably their skin in the game, their resilience will be much higher. So we just look at it from the angle of thinking that they have impact businesses have a lot of characteristics that maximize the potential for a higher return. So I don't see any reason why an impact-led fund should have a lower returns than a non-impact fund.
Thank you. So Agate, one of the things that will certainly matter to the audience is that when you compare an impact company, if you can call it like that, or a non-impact, what extra traits do you expect from entrepreneurs? And I know Carmen already got us started on that. So maybe you can tell us a bit more about what things you look at during your due diligence process.
No, I mean, I can just echo what Carmen said in a way that, being an entrepreneur is extremely difficult. Publicly, we always celebrate the success stories and we only see the glory side of it. But the reality of day to day for most founders out there is that it's extremely difficult and you really need to have your why straight. And we find that, I think, as Carmen said, that the impact entrepreneurs find it easier to find that why, that they have this additional motivation that keeps them going. But other than that, again, just echoing Carmen, we are the type of impact investor who would not compromise on the returns in the name of impact. And we really truly believe that you don't have to. So the key thing that we look for is that impact and financial returns go hand in hand. Sort of the test is that for every unit of sales, there is also a unit of impact, and there should be one-to-one correlation. And if you manage to find companies where the impact is at the very, very core of the business model, you never ever see the contradiction between the two. And it's one of the, I'd say, probably most frequent question that we get, in the end of the day, if you have to choose, is it impact or is it the returns? And we always say, there is a mistake in the premise of the question, because if you're truly looking for companies that have impact at the very core of the business model, you really never have to choose between the two, and you can achieve both of those.
That's great. And John, would you add anything in terms of either the return hurdles being different when you look at a company, or what you look for in an entrepreneur in this space and during the due diligence process? Anything on top of what Carmen and Agate already brought to us?
Yeah, I mean, so I echo the point. We don't believe that there's a compromise in returns here, and actually, I think that is what we need to prove as an industry, and that's our kind of job for the next 10 years.
I'll actually give an example on this that happened with Masterseed last week. We were at the onboarding of one of their companies in which we're co-investors with the fund. And it is a company that is a SaaS model in a very in like a back office function for companies, but that has a big mission to increase transparency in a very opaque space. And when Masterseed was kind of putting out the metrics that they are like asking the company to keep track of in order to measure the positive impact, we actually had a laugh because it was share of wallet. it was like the penetration per company and how much of the business that you manage to capture. Obviously, the more you do, the more transparency you bring on board, but it's also the key metric that I wanted to see in the business coming from an, like, not necessarily impact angle, just a purely metrics, scalability thing. So it's definitely not, like, they're not opposed concepts at all. They go hand in hand, as Agate was saying.
It's just what you'd look at if you were looking at another company. So
Yeah.
Carmen, let's stay with you, and I'll turn into the dark side for a bit. We do have to talk about COVID-19, and I'm sorry to be the one bringing up the bad word into the conversation. But how do you feel like this has affected the companies you work with? And more importantly, what impact do you think it's having on this side of the market in general and on impact investing in general?
I just had a 2-hour meeting this morning with everybody wearing masks. So we can see that was a very difficult meeting to have. But basically, I think it's a very interesting question, because when COVID first hit and everybody thought about two things, right? One was like immediate, one was cash. But like the reality is there were two probably even more important ones. Cash kept you alive, but it was the team making sure that, and I think great founders have made a great job in making sure that your team felt that was informed, was part of the communication, and didn't feel like kind of left out. And then not to give up. And again, this is why I think that impact and business returns or impact and business success are not like opposed concept. In fact, I think impact companies during COVID, obviously impact of COVID is very asymmetric, and it depends very much on sectors. But even in the sectors that did the worst, impact-led companies or companies with a positive mission fared much better than others, right? And probably that has to do with, one, the founders and how engaged they were, how important it was for them to continue fighting, so to say, how they took care of their teams, but also by the consumer side. And I think that is an important thing. This whole like movement towards impact is also like, it goes end to end, and the consumers are leading it as well, right? And you can really see in e-commerce, for example, how sustainability and environmental sustainability became a very, very big thing. And this is during COVID, where people were supposedly being worried about like losing their job and like not leaving home, not seeing their loved ones. And it actually, the effect was that we started caring more about what really matters, right? And a very good case on that is actually Boohoo, and their market share like getting cut in half in 2 days, because suddenly the public was aware that it was not that they were not paying their employees the right wages, so to say. So I think all in all, it has just reaffirmed the post-COVID world will be probably a more a better context for impact businesses.
Thank you, Carmen. It's always good to hear when COVID actually brings us positive stories. So John, you already told us that the mission for the next 10 years is to make impact investing mainstream. So what do you think, your biggest challenge that you face in this space?
I mean, I kind of go back to the point I made at the start. I think it's scale, right? So you can think about impact in two ways. You can think about the actual impact that the product's delivering, and then you can think about the scale of the company and how much impact it's able to deliver by size. And I think we're starting to see very big companies being built out of the kind of technology ecosystem that have an impact and are mission driven, and we just got to continue that and show that. Like we have to demonstrate through the returns in the investments that we're making and through the size of the businesses that we're backing that this is that impact isn't a niche kind of subset of the investment market. It is the investment market, and that's where we've got to go. And if we do like our job, that's our job as investors, being part of the community and demonstrating that and educating. I guess kind of a core part of that is like talking about like stuff like this. So talking about what we're doing, sharing how we're thinking about assessing impact, sharing our failures and our successes and what we've learned. And that's how and so that's the biggest challenge, I think.
Thank you. This has been super insightful, but I'm afraid I'm feeling the tension of the startup pitches coming up. So one question for all of you. For all the investors out there that have not yet grasped the potential impact that they can have here and the potential investment opportunity they have in this space, is there any parting words you want to leave with them? Shall we start, Agate?
Sure. I mean, in a short, I could just say catch up. The impact space is happening, and as we've mentioned multiple times throughout the panel, is that there is no inherent contradiction between impact and profits, and we go even one step further. We fundamentally believe that impact companies stand the chance of outperforming the mainstream companies. So, catch up.
Carmen?
I think that we basically, and echoing Agata, we have a responsibility to do it, a responsibility to our LPs, because we have a fiduciary duty to bring the highest returns. And I believe that impact will bring higher returns, and also a responsibility because we have the privilege to be able to invest in companies that will shape the future, and we should be mindful of that.
John?
I probably, one of the greatest kind of learning experiences for me over the last 2 years is the conversations with the entrepreneurs and talking about what we're trying to achieve as a fund and what they're trying to achieve as a company. So if you have those conversations, see the feedback you get from entrepreneurs, and I think that will guide you.
So I know I said it was the end, but actually that wasn't quite the case. There is a surprise round for quick reactions now, and we're now at past time, so we'll do it quick. At Maze, there's always one surprise question that is always asked of the guests. Where do you find wisdom? Anyone volunteers to go first? Should I cold call? All right, Carmen.
That's because my face looked the scariest one, right? Where do I find wisdom? I guess I find wisdom, and that's why I always try, and this sounds very, very BS, but it is the reality. I always try to have as friends and as colleagues and as even family. That's not very much my option, but people that are much better than me in every front. Sometimes it's professionally, sometimes it's as people, and that's just, I like to observe people and their behavior and learn from them, and that's, I guess, where I find, not sure if it's wisdom, but at least learnings that shape me as the person I want to be. Sorry.
John?
It's a great question. The combination of books and people.
Thank you. And Agata, do you want to get us finished?
Yeah, no, I'd say you really find wisdom everywhere. I think you can actually learn something from every single person, and I think live life through that approach and openness to learn.
Your answer definitely wins.
The advantage of going last.
Thank you so much. This has been super insightful. I'll give the microphone back to Rita now, and good luck for everyone doing the pitches. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks very much. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.